Hey everybody, welcome to the Coffeehouse Conversations podcast, and I'm your host, Amos St. John. Thank you for tuning in. I want to also give a special shout out to all my listeners and supporters who leave comments and left some encouraging words for me in this podcast. It really helps. Keep them coming. I tell you, it really helps. And I'm telling you, if this is your first time, thank you and welcome. I'm so glad that you chose to tune in and listen to this podcast and hear what I have to share from my heart. I really hope that this can help you and add value to you. And also feel free to share it with someone that you think may benefit from what I'm sharing on this podcast. If you haven't listened to any of the prior podcasts, please feel free to go back and listen to the earlier podcast. Specifically, the last podcast, I talked about rejection. Nobody likes rejection. I hate rejection. But in some odd points, it is necessary. Rejection, that's a whole nother subject. But go back and listen to it. I shared some experiences about going through rejection and traumas and what I did. I shared 3 things that I did to help me get on the road to a healthier mind, body, and soul. Go back and check it out. Well, today, I really want to touch on a subject on unforgiveness, the weight of unforgiveness. Something I really feel that is something that we have to address in our adult life in order to grow and get healthy and move on and climb up the road to success and significance. You have to deal with that uncomfortable thing called unforgiveness. And I was reading a book a while ago by Dr. Tony Evans called Detours. And I'm going to share an excerpt from that book. He says, unforgiveness is that one thing above all else that will block God's movement in your life, taking you from where you are to where you are supposed to go. When you hang on to the weight of yesterday, it will hinder the progress to tomorrow. Unforgiveness is that critical area that must be addressed if you are going to reach your destiny. Again, that's an excerpt from Dr. Tony Evans' book, Detours. And I tell you, that book really has been a tremendous blessing to me, especially in this season of my life. So if you have a chance, go grab that book, and I guarantee it'll be a great addition to your reading. But today I want to talk about, the first thing I want to talk about is the areas that are affected by unforgiveness. There are 3 areas I want to share that are affected by unforgiveness. It's your past. The second is your present. And the third is your future. The first area concerning your past and how it affects your future, present, and future is when you experience a betrayal in your past. In your present, it creates this anxiety, this sense of this anxiety, and you deal with depression. And how does that affect you in the future? If you don't address it, you will never necessarily reach your fullest potential. And so, if you don't address that betrayal and forgive the situation or the person who betrayed you, you will affect your present with anxiety and depression, and you will not reach your future potential if you don't address it. Another area, if you experience rejection, like I talked about in the last episode, you can't find yourself fully committing because you're afraid of getting rejected. And so you're kind of dealing with that PTSD where I don't necessarily want to be turned down, so I'm just not going to commit. And basically, you find yourself isolated. That's how it affects your future. So I'm talking about past, present, and future. Your past, you dealt with the rejection. Your present, you can't fully commit. And how does it affect your future? You basically live a life of solitude and isolation. So you have to address that area of unforgiveness. And the final point, you dealt with disappointment in your past. And how does that affect your present? Well, you walk around with low expectations. And then how does that affect your future? Well, you become complacent. You never grow. You never go to the next level because you were disappointed and you're afraid to get disappointed again. So let's address those areas, okay? And when you're dealing with those areas that are affected by unforgiveness, you realize it not just affect then but it affects the now and it affects the future. So please, it's important that we address those areas of unforgiveness, and the second thing I want to talk about is the importance of forgiveness. All right. I just talked about the areas that are affected by unforgiveness. Now I want to talk about the importance of forgiveness. Basically, it brings freedom. It opens up your heart and it opens up your mind, and it helps you regain your focus again, and it brings back your joy. That freedom is nothing. There's nothing like freedom from something that was holding you back, and once you learn to forgive, that freedom can never be taken back. You can carry that and move on with your life, and you can live in peace. That's another area of importance of when you forgive. You can live in peace. You can walk with a confidence, and you can be really confident to become your brother or sister's keeper. You can trust again. You basically because with that freedom, you walk with that peace. You can never turn back and say, you know what, I'm not allowing that to hinder me anymore because I let it go. And then the final thing, you have growth. You're growing because you have freedom. You're walking with peace. So you can live with a stronger sense of purpose. You can love your enemies, which is difficult because you've dealt with people who've hurt you in the past. You've dealt with people who've betrayed you or rejected you or disappointed you, but you still have to love them. I talked about that with my brother Jamar Jones a few episodes ago, how we in this earth are to love our enemies, love everyone. And so it's a learned behavior. It's something that you have to really work hard at in your heart to love people who will willingly persecute you, And so that's something with relationship for me being a Christian with Christ. It is that relationship as it grows deeper. I have learned to love my neighbors and love my enemies, And so, and we're able to encourage and spread that message of forgiveness to others. And so, that's the importance of forgiveness. And finally, I want to talk about two types of forgiveness. Okay. There are two types of forgiveness. There is a unilateral forgiveness and there's a transactional forgiveness. Now, in reading Dr. Tony Evans' book, he shared about unilateral forgiveness. He said that unilateral forgiveness is when you forgive someone who has not asked for it, has not demonstrated a heart of remorse, or maybe even hasn't stopped doing the offense. Whoa. So you got basically forgive someone who may not even recognize that they have offended you, that they have hurt you, that they've betrayed you, that they have rejected you. How difficult is that? Well, again, if you want to be free, live in peace, and grow, you have to let it go. And you have to be strong. I'm telling you, there is a freedom, there is a release in when you forgive that person who has that has offended you, that has hurt you, even though they don't recognize it. I'm telling you, it's powerful. You take that power back because once you're dealing with unforgiveness, you're giving that person who offended you so much power over you. The minute you think about them, the minute you see them, the situation, it just basically holds you hostage. Let it go. Forgive them, even though they don't recognize it. The second type of forgiveness is transactional forgiveness. And again, an excerpt from Dr. Tony Evans' book, Detours, he says, transactional forgiveness occurs when there is a desire for reconciliation and repentance has taken place. And it is when the person or persons who have offended you are willing to confess what was done wrong and seek to restore what has been broken. And transactional, many of us wish that most of our situations will end up in a transactional forgiveness, but sometimes it's not that way. But when it does happen, I know it's sweet. If it was a broken relationship, a broken friendship, and you experience that person coming back and say, you know what, I am sorry for hurting you. I want to repair this. I want to do it. That is such a beautiful thing. I believe the friendship, the connection comes back stronger than before because you can be whole again. You can be free. You can trust and grow again. And I've dealt with transactional forgiveness in many times where I've shared I had an offense, somebody offended me or I offended someone, time, and I took the time to go back and say, you know what, I hurt you, or I may have offended you, and I'm sorry. I would like to repair it. And, there is such a freedom in that, and experiencing, there's such a growth in that, there's such a peace in that transactional forgiveness. So again, there are two types of forgiveness that I talked about. Unilateral forgiveness, again, where the person may not even recognize or even want to acknowledge that they hurt you, but you still got to forgive them. And then the other one is transactional. Basically, the person, you and the other person or situation have confronted it, have acknowledged it, and apologized, and are repairing it. And fixing it. And so those areas, many of us can reflect and say, you know what, there's some situations that may require unilateral forgiveness. I may just have to let it go and just let it go. And yeah, there may be some situations you have to confront the person and say, you know what, you hurt me, and I think we need to address this. And I've done both. And I tell you, and there's a growth in that. There's a maturity in that. There's a development in that. And I can expound so heavily in it, but you know what? We'll have plenty more podcasts to share about this area of forgiveness and so many different parts that we can talk about. But I just wanted to give a good general overview and dealing with the weight of forgiveness. The weight of unforgiveness. I guarantee once you address those areas of unforgiveness and forgive, whether unilaterally or transactionally, I guarantee, again, you will be free, you will live in a sense of peace, and you will grow. Just don't let that hold you down anymore. And so as we close, I just want again to encourage you that this podcast, my experiences and me sharing it, I really hope to add value to you, to encourage you to live your best life, because there's so much more in you. There's so much more potential in you, and you have to address those uncomfortable areas. That's why I talked about rejection. That's why now I'm talking about unforgiveness. And there are going to be some more areas, and I'll bring some more experts. I'm working on bringing in a psychologist, a therapist, and we'll have engaging conversation in future podcasts about these areas and get it from a very professional perspective. But I'm just giving this from a perspective of my experience and what I've encountered in life. I don't claim to be an expert now and say, hey, no, this is the one-stop shop, but I can share what works for me. It may not work for you. You may have to alter it and curtail it to where you are, but I'm guaranteed that I am living in freedom. I am walking in a better sense of peace, and I'm growing because I've learned to forgive those who have hurt me. So as I close again, I really want to encourage you that this is the time for you to grow, live in peace, and walk in your freedom. And there's no turning back with this. And you can do this. You can do this. You can do this. And I guarantee that when we take those first steps, you're starting to feel better. I hate saying guarantee because there ain't no true guarantee, but there's a force of habit. But I really do pray that making these steps towards being free, walking in peace, and growing will help you move forward in life and not allow those weights to hold you down. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. And again, I pray you spread this message to someone else that may need to hear this. And again, I recommend you read that book, Detours by Dr. Tony Evans. It's a great book that has been a blessing to me. And I'll probably reread it again because there were so many things in that book that really spoke to me. And I hope that if you pick this up, it can speak to you too. Until we meet, see, and hear each other again, I thank you for listening to the Coffeehouse Conversations podcast.